Hey, what's up? This is Jake from Nimbus DevOps, and this next section is going to be on mutability and immutability with Python objects. So, the first fundamental distinction that Python makes on data is whether or not the value can be changed, right? Or the object can be changed. And if the value can be changed, it's mutable. And if it cannot be changed, it's immutable. And if you watched my Terraform series, you'll know that this concept is used in infrastructure as code, referring to immutable infrastructure. And so if you understand that concept, this same concept carries over to Python objects as well. It's important to understand the difference between the two because we're going to be using it a lot. But I'm going to do a simple example, and it might surprise you even if you do have experience with Python um, when I ask this next question. And that's that if me as a person, my age is 39, and I just return the age 39, the value of that object, and then I say, okay, let's pretend that I'm actually 25, and I say age is 25. Did I change the value of the object age? And the answer is no, I did not. And you might be like, wait, what? So the reason is because if you remember, a very specific thing that I said in one of my previous videos was that what happens when you create an object? It's assigned an ID and a type and a value. So if I type it again with a different number, I'm not changing the value of age. I'm creating another object. So in the global scope, there's going to be a different ID assigned for this. And you can see this, right, with the built-in function ID. So, oops, I'm not out of this terminal. So if I were to, here, let me just clean it up so it's easier to read. If I were to do this again and check the ID in between each one, you'll see that they should be different. So age equals 39. Okay, return age. See, it's 39. And let's get the ID of age. It ends in 2352. Okay, so let's change it to 25. Return age. You can see it's been changed. And let's get the ID of age again. And now you'll see it actually ends in 1904. So while you've probably for years thought that you were actually changing the value of age, you're actually creating a brand new object. So interesting little food for thought, but it's something that you need to understand and remember because we're going to be using this a lot. I need to understand the concept of mutable and immutable um, objects within Python. So now that you've kind of seen how that works and how I use that built-in ID function to verify that, you can show that little party check to your friends, which is kind of fun. These numbers, by the way, are randomly generated by Python, so there's no way to know what they will be or are. So this is why I tell you that it's not important to know what the actual value is. It is important to know whether it's mutable or immutable, though. So now let's take an example. These are immutable, right? They can't be changed. They're just recreated every time. So now let's clear my screen again, and let's show you what a mutable object might look like. So in this case, what I'm going to do, we're talking about myself, right, my age. So I'm going to make a class called person, okay? And in this class, I'm going to do def initialize with self and age, okay? And I'm going to just say that self.age equals age, and that's it. And then I'm going to assign a value using the assignment operator to this object named age, the name age, and I should be able to do the same thing. I should be able to say, well, no, that's not true. What I want to do actually is I want to say Jake equals person, all right? So I'm going to use my custom class, and then I'm going to pass an argument, okay? Age equals 39. So what does that mean? It means that anything that when I call this class here, anything I put inside this parenthesis is an argument, and I'm passing this argument to this class. So when it says, okay, I have a new object named Jake, and the type, right, it creates an ID. The type is person, okay? It's not string, it's person. And that type is going to tell, Python is going to go, oh, this type means that when I call this object, I actually need to go through this class first and find the data. And in this case, we're actually giving it an argument and saying, hey, go through that class. But when you get to self.age, actually just assign that age. So in this case, we just assigned it 39. So now what I can do is I can take the ID of myself, Jake, as an object, and I can return, we see it ends in 5536, right? And if I take the ID of my age, Jake.age, we'll see that it ends in 5216. Okay, so now let's go ahead and change that. Let's say that Jake.age equals 25. So this is just a little bit more complicated version, not complicated, more complex version of the previous example. So I just changed the value of this object here, which is a property of this class, which is the property of this Jake object. And let's double check and see what happens. So now if I take the ID of Jake now, I can see it ends in 5536, which is the same as it was before. But now if I take the ID of Jake.age, you'll see it ends in 4768, and the previous one ended in 5216. So what we have here is a mutable object, Jake, which has a property inside this custom class of age that has a value of 39 here. But when I change it, the ID of Jake, the object, stays the same, but the ID of my age, the immutable object, changes. So in this case, I used a mutable object to create immutable objects. It's worth noting that Python custom objects in Python are mutable unless you code them not to be, which is a thing you can do. We're not going to do that right now. And I want you to keep this concept in mind because it is very important. And I'll remind you of that as we go through the rest of this second module. And we'll get a little bit more in depth with this. But essentially, that's what I wanted to share with you about mutability and immutability. So immutability. And if you have questions, let me know. But if not, then I will see you in the next one.